Welcome back to another video on Gearsaw Studios, and today I'm going to be showing you how to build yourself a witch house. In case you're ever in that spooky mood and decide, you know what, I need to live in the spooky place, well, you've come to the right video. So without further ado, onto the tutorial. And now, for our palette, we're going to be using a relatively simple one. The only major thing would be crimson planks. Otherwise, standard stuff, dark oak and spruce planks, magenta and purple stained glass panes, spruce logs going horizontal. We'll be using black stone for the foundation and the roof, along with crimson planks. We'll be using those for the floor as well, along with deep slate tiles in their cracked version. With some landscaping using spruce, and then outside we'll have some candles floating around in purple, magenta, and orange. Then get yourself some deep slate, normal stuff, and you want to make a 3x3 segmented square. Each segment should be 3 blocks like this, 1 block gap in between. You can see what I'm doing here, and I've already built one, but once you reach a corner, you want to do it again. Notice how we have this 1 block gap here, 1 block gap here, 1 block gap here. Once you do that, then you want to remove the sides in the back end, and then you will extend it out a couple of blocks. You can see whenever we reach a corner like this, we go 1 block diagonal, and then once we have our entire frame laid out, you push everything 1 block forwards, while you place spruce logs like this over your existing deep slate before you do that. And yes, that's a lot to take in. I can understand if you're a little confused about that, but essentially, segments of 3 in the back, thick stuff here once you reach a dead end with your square, and then a 5 wide here, make it protrude, and then we'll add black stone shortly afterwards. Make sure to remove any trees nearby if you're in a swamp or a taiga, since they'll get in the way of the build. And once you have everything protruding, it'll be easier to see what's going on with the shape. Now we have our deep slate here, protruding. Above we have our spruce logs. Make sure all your deep slate is facing upwards or facing outwards, like this. It depends on what texture you like. I prefer it upwards, but still. And then you'll notice we have our framing here, which means we can start constructing the walls. Get all your wall blocks, and then what we want to do is make these walls 5 blocks tall. I know the display says 4, but still. Like this. And then we place the windows like this. And if you have 3 tall windows, because you want yours to match mine, then the bottom should be pink, like this. Repeat this on all sides, and use the same design for these windows here. Whenever you reach an empty section, fill it in with dark oak or black stone. It's up to you, but on the outside, it's going to be covered in black stone. So think more about the interior's design in that sense. Now, we have ourselves all of the walls in place. You'll notice that some parts connect a little strangely, mainly on inwards corners, but we'll handle those later. Now, our job is to add a little bit more to the foundation. Take this simple segment here. You'll notice black stone around it, and that's it. Add stairs here and here, and then like this. And you want to repeat this on each segment. Since these ones are a special case scenario, I'd recommend doing nothing to them for the time being, since they're likely to be integrated into part of the porch or their own mini first floor balcony. Otherwise, ignore the front, we're adding a porch here later, and add this to everything else you see. Then, once you're done with that part, in front of all of these where the blackstone is covering, you want to add yourself some grass. You'll notice it might be a little annoying on some areas to do, but like this, you could add some plants. Although this is down to personal preference whether you think it would work or not. Now, the foundation has its extra details. On the corners, we have some stairs everywhere, and we have some accents filled in with purple terracotta. And there's one thing you might notice. The deep slate has been replaced with purple terracotta and brought in line with the rest of the build. And this is a personal choice I made since I personally like the purple terracotta and to differentiate it from my past witch house. For the rules of purple terracotta, make sure that they're all level at the same height like this. If it goes any lower, add a polished blackstone. If it goes lower than that, fill it in with terrain or polished blackstone bricks. And then we need to build our porch. I built mine protruding by 4 blocks, and you'll need to fill it in using some blocks. You can either use deep slate tiles or crimson planks, which I find to be the best 2 options. I'm going to be going with the deep slate tiles. And then one final palette choice you can make. You might want to replace your spruce logs with stripped dark oak logs or stripped spruce logs. You can see here that they look pretty decent, so I'm going to be going with them. Now replace the first floor, build the first floor's floor using deep slate tiles, and then texture them with their cracked version accordingly once that time comes. And make sure that the doorway uses wood like this in order to make a seamless connection. Now we have this place and we have the porch. And this is a large scale change you might want to make because of the porch. You might want to mirror it onto the other side as well. Even if it doesn't include the porch part itself, it will make the back a little bit better on the build. And although it's a large scale change, I'm going to go through with it. If you don't want to make the house that large, especially since it will make the interior a bit harder to build since there'll be so much room to fill in, feel free to leave out that part. But beware, that is coming up and will be done off camera. But for the porch itself, what we want to do is get ourselves some fences. You can either use nether brick, or you can use some dark oak, or if you're feeling pretty bold, you can even use walls. Although that might be a little too bold. Then you place some pieces here, add supports using your support block, and then you'll have blackstone stairs starting from here, grabbing myself the stairs, and then once you do that, make it wrap around, go on top of all the supports you place, since I advise you to place supports on each side. We'll have one here, and potentially one on the front, although the 3 block wide staircase goes here. So 6 supports might be enough. Wrap it around, connect it to here, and potentially extend the build 1 segment backwards. Now we have ourselves a porch. You can see I added 8 things here, removed the windows, and we have 2 layers of blackstone here, going up. And you'll notice that I try to make sure that there are some parts where it goes up a little, as to not make the whole thing too overbearing over everything else. Of course, fences should not go under stairs, full blocks only. And you can see they're all under full blocks. When possible, I replace said full blocks with stairs, although not perfect, still. Make sure that it's completely symmetrical, and then once you have that, go upstairs, then place down some nether brick fences as you see fit, and perhaps even add small structures on top in order to place more fences, while the very top layer, excluding the edges, should be crimson. On the inside, we have some deep slate tiles, cracked ones mixed in, and we also have a staircase, a very simple one, and if you're wondering about the design, you place down stairs. To the left and right, we have full blocks. On top of those and below those, we have stairs. And that's about it. We repeat it once, and then we go up again. Make sure that you're in the 3rd floor, so that way we can get ourselves the 3rd floor. But we're only making the middle one the 3rd floor. Make sure that everything else remains different. And once you have this in place, start making a walkway from one end of this to the other. Although not completely, so that way we can make a strange little balcony here. Because this is a witch's house, we want the geometry to be a little bit weirder than usual. Once you have your walkway across, it should look something like this, where we have this little overhang here in order to prevent any awkward edges. Go across here, nice bridge across the room. Now, what we need to do is fill out the 2nd and 3rd floors. The second floor will be a copy of the first floor in terms of walls, which means build another layer of walls, add nothing new to them for now. We'll handle the exterior later. And then add your fancy windows. And for the third floor, we're going to make them even taller because they're already tall enough, but sometimes you need even taller windows. Especially since this is meant to be the tallest floor, there should be a height difference between this and this middle part. I'd say something like 5 blocks would be good. This is 4 blocks. It depends on what works for you. I'd experiment between different things, and whatever works for you, works for you. Now we have the second and third floors all done. On the walls, you can see that these third floor walls are the same height as the second and first. That's because I personally found it to be a bit weird to have them too tall. Mainly because the tall roof will give us enough interior space, which means we can keep exterior consistency while keeping a tall room, with the cost of the exterior being normal height. But with complex language aside, what we need to do is find the center of this place. And if you did 2 segments like this, then it should be aligned with this window and these 2 wall pieces here. Once you do that, tower up from the middle and go decently high, because we have to make sure that this whole place is centered, so that way it will be aligned. Now, using these black stone hinges here, where we have stairs turning into a circle, we place down a crimson plank on top. On the corners, we indent a little, and then we wrap around. Do this for all sides, and make sure that it remains pointed even when contacting here, since if you don't, you'll end up a roof that's shaped like a triangle instead of a cone. When finished, your roof should look something like this. Simplistic shape, and 2 blocks in the middle. Although that appears to be off-center, still, we have to account for this protruding wall here if you're to follow the first, second, and third floor design. Although you could always change the design on third floor, I like consistency, which means this works anyways. Even if it appears off-center, still, we'll have such a big one in the middle, it won't matter. And a small detail you might want, since you might have a different vision for the build than I do, I was looking for more of a happy spooky. If you want something more spooky, then I wouldn't add flowers. I'd add dead bushes. Personally, I like the flowers, but it's up to you. Once you start construction on the main roof, you'll notice that some parts will intersect with the side roofs. A simple solution to this is to replace the intersecting parts with polished blackstone. Since we don't have multi-blocks in Minecraft, we have to make do with seeing which one works better. If you're to make one crimson, it would probably not look terribly good because the harsh edge of this. Therefore, replace any intersecting parts with polished blackstone, and then start building your roof. Same design as the rest of them, and yes, it will be very, very tall. With our roofs now in place, we now have a finished exterior excluding the candles, which will be done with the landscape. And you might notice that I made some changes. The polished blackstone here has been changed to dark oak in order to match these sections here, which purple terracotta, make a little pod around it, blocks on either side, stairs above, and then opposite facing stairs to connect. Wraps around the corners, and then our actual roofs, they're pretty simplistic. They're 2-slope, and when we get to the top where we can't make perfect wraparounds, we add extra stairs. Essentially, the rules go away once you reach that part. And now we have a really nice exterior. Of course, we'll add the final touches later, but we have a more pressing matter. This interior is 1, a mob fest, and 2, probably very dangerous. So, what we need to do is add various things in order to liven it up and make it livable. One thing is wrap around any dark oak you see in the central area. You can see we have crimson on the roof above, filled in with spruce slabs, so that way we have a proper roof to hang things on. For our first step with the interior, we want a chimney, because Although a chimney is an exterior object and, of course, needs to extend into the roof like this, it should be 3 blocks thick also, which means it goes right about out here. It also means that we get to place a fireplace inside, which means you go on the inside, pierce through the wall, and then we can start adding our fireplace. Notice we have all this blackstone here, which means we can go with a little bit more unique design. Place this, go across, blackstone on the bottom, netherrack goes here, light it all on fire, add some cracked bricks, and you'll have a chimney. Now, we got ourselves the fireplace, blackstone going up, cracked bricks interlaced within, and a nice living area. Living area is nothing special, basic chairs using trapdoors. We got the purple wool in the middle, gray carpet on the outside, and string inside of here in order to prevent fire from spreading. Then, on the inside, we go all the way up, and we have some campfires in order to produce some smoke. If you want to fly into the chimney, you do have to remove the campfires, which means no smoke, but provides an alternative means of entrance, which might be something you want. Otherwise, I'd fill up the rest of the interior in the first and second floors with various brewing equipment, tables, and bookshelves. Nothing too specific, but make sure to use this walkway for something, since we have this balcony over here, which might make an interesting scene for something. Not to mention, we have paintings in this game. Don't forget those. Now, I've filled up this place with various witch things. We got some books, more books, an area with a lot of barrels, a cauldron filled with lava. If you're on bedrock, fill it up with a potion. Some mushrooms growing here on podzol surrounded by dark oak trapdoors. And on our walkway here, we have a desk to study at, and a line of brewing stands. Of course, we have the third floor, but we're going to handle this shortly. But what you need to do for the third floor in order to make it usable, do what we have here with the ceilings, except make them taller. Use roughly the same shape as the outside on the inside in order to make it taller. As in, pretty much extend the walls a little bit upward, use stairs, and make the center of the room quite a bit taller than the edges. With our interesting configuration for a ceiling here, along with a small mural on top made out of pink, magenta, and purple concrete, we now have ourselves a bit of an issue, and you'll see it immediately. Or rather, you won't see it. Sorry, mobile users, but this is basically impossible to see in, which means we need some extra lighting. Of course, we can always add torches. Torches are always a good choice, and I'd recommend them for temporary lighting. But the thing is, they aren't super thematically fitting. Even after I add all these in, still, the ceiling is kinda dark, and that will be that way pretty much forever. Which means we need some floating candles. Get yourself outside. We have ourselves purple, magenta, and orange candles. I'd recommend adding pink into the mix as well. Scaffold around and place them all around, including outside. You don't need terribly many outside, but make sure that they're in groups larger than 1 and preferably only 2 to 3. You can have a 4 sometimes, but don't overdo it. And although this might be tough, still, it adds a lot to the build. With our candles added around here, you can see how much better the build looks. It's kind of like a wither storm with its block clusters, but still, with all the candles floating around and a couple decaying trees, you can see how much more this brings to the build, since it lights up the exterior and it provides some character to it, how they're all misaligned in various colors. Of course, you can keep going with how many you want, and it's pretty easy to do in creative. In survival, I'm sorry for how long this is going to take, but in creative, what you can do is press the up key or up D pad, set down a block, not pause the game, and then place down your candles, destroy the block, and what do you know, another candle cluster. Keep doing that until satisfied. As for the upper parts, what you want to do is include a bedroom and perhaps another desk, along with more witchy things. Now, we got the bedroom here, candles floating around, bookcases lined up, and a couple of flower pots here and there. We also have these empty desks here, and an empty wall for whatever you want. Perhaps something to do with brewing ingredients, maybe some item frames with some pickaxes to act as arrows in order to teach you how to do certain things. Look up the recipe once, place it on here, and see if you can memorize it. And that means the interior is completely done. If you want this place to be livable though, the best place to put a storage system would be inside of these empty roofs here. Otherwise, our final step will be dealing with the landscape. Get yourself some spruce leaves like this, and place them around in various shapes. Like this. We got one bush here. Make sure it's symmetrical and encompass the entire outside with these bushes. And on that note, if you have any nearby structures, such as a cemetery, connect them up to this building. With our landscaping now in place, this build is officially complete. We have all of our candles flying around, some extravagant roofs and intricately designed pieces here and there. Of course, it's a very large build. You must be careful about whatever mistakes you've made. You might accidentally skip over something. And we have some nice flowers, although those could be dead. And then we have our porch here, and a wonderful interior, which is suited for a witch. Not to mention ample lighting from all the candles. I'd recommend trying this out if you're an experienced builder and trying to do something for Halloween, since this is a pretty tough tutorial and it requires a lot of blocks. So it might be difficult for newcomers, but if you have a little bit of experience, take a shot at it. And with that, it's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video, remember, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. Either way, enjoy the rest of your spooky month. Gearsaw out.